The young recruit stood in the firing lane, smirking as he watched the old man fumble with the M1 Garand. "It's broken, Pops," the recruit laughed, pointing at the clicking sound echoing from the rifle. "Probably older than you are. Just give it up." The other recruits joined in the laughter, their voices carrying across the range. The old man in the red jacket said nothing, his weathered hands still working the rifle with practiced movements. His sad eyes never left the weapon. The range instructor started to intervene, but something made him pause. Type respect if you believe experience deserves recognition. The man they called Pops was 70 years old, his white hair and white beard marking him as the oldest person on the civilian marksmanship range that morning. He wore his usual red jacket over a faded t-shirt, clothes that had seen better days. His serious expression never changed as the younger men mocked him. He'd come to the range every Saturday for the past 3 months, always alone, always quiet, always choosing the oldest rifles from the rental rack. The staff had grown used to seeing him, this silent old man who seemed out of place among the tactical gear enthusiasts and young shooters showing off their expensive equipment. The recruit who had started the mockery was named Derek, 22 years old, fresh from basic training and full of confidence. He had been showing off his own AR-15 all morning, demonstrating rapid fire techniques to anyone who would watch. When he saw the old man struggling with the M1, he saw an opportunity for entertainment. "That thing belongs in a museum," Derek called out. "Just like you, old-timer. This is a range for real shooters." His friends laughed again, some of them filming on their phones. The old man's hands moved steadily despite the clicking. He checked the chamber, examined the en-bloc clip, his movements deliberate and methodical. The rifle continued to click without firing. Derek walked closer, his expensive boots crunching on the brass casings littering the ground. "You even know how to load that dinosaur? Here, let me show you how a real rifle works." He raised his AR-15, firing off a quick burst downrange, the modern weapon's report sharp and aggressive. The rangemaster, a former Marine named Collins, watched from the control booth. He had noticed something about the old man in the red jacket, something in the way he handled weapons, the way he stood, the way his fingers moved with muscle memory that didn't come from weekend hobby shooting. Collins had been about to step in when the mockery started, but he decided to wait, watching the old man's face for any reaction. There was none. The old man simply continued working the rifle, his sad, serious expression unchanged. He ejected the clip, examined it closely, then reached into his jacket pocket. The clicking continued as he tested the action again and again. Derek leaned against the partition between lanes, grinning. "Give it up, Pops. That rifle's done. Probably hasn't been fired since World War II. Just like you probably haven't done anything useful since then either." The old man finally spoke, his voice quiet and measured. "The rifle isn't broken." He inserted a fresh clip, the distinctive ping of the M1 Garand's en-bloc system, barely audible over the range noise. "It just needed proper ammunition." He raised the rifle to his shoulder in one fluid motion, his stance perfect, his breathing controlled. Then he began to fire. The first shot rang out, the M1's powerful 30-06 round echoing across the range. Then another, and another. The rhythm was mechanical, precise, each shot spaced exactly the same interval apart. The old man's body absorbed the recoil effortlessly, the rifle barely moving from its position. Downrange, the target began to disintegrate. Every single round found the center mass, then the head, then back to center mass. A pattern that spoke of thousands of hours of practice, of training that had become instinct. Derek stopped laughing. The other shooters on the line stopped firing, turning to watch. The old man continued, ejecting the empty clip with that famous Garand ping, loading another, continuing his measured fire. His face remained serious and sad, his eyes focused downrange with an intensity that made several of the younger men step back. He fired through one clip, then another, then another. The clicking was gone, replaced by the thunderous report of one of history's greatest battle rifles in the hands of someone who knew exactly how to use it. Collins walked out of the booth, his face pale. He had made a phone call and now he stood watching, waiting. The old man fired for 20 minutes straight, never missing, never hesitating, his movements as smooth as a machine. When he finally lowered the rifle, his breathing was still controlled, his hands steady. The range had gone completely silent except for the ringing in everyone's ears. Derek's phone was still recording, but his smirk had vanished. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice smaller now. Before the old man could answer, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. A man in an army dress uniform stepped out, stars gleaming on his shoulders. Major General Richard Hayes walked onto the range with purpose, his aide following close behind. Every veteran on the line immediately recognized the rank, several standing straighter instinctively. Collins met the general halfway, speaking quietly, gesturing toward the old man in the red jacket. Hayes nodded, his face grave, and continued forward. When he reached the firing line, he came to attention and saluted. The old man slowly returned the salute, his sad eyes meeting the general's. "Sergeant Major," Hayes said, his voice carrying across the now silent range. "I apologize for not recognizing you were here. If I had known, I would have come sooner." He turned to face the crowd of shooters, his voice taking on the tone of command. "This man is Sergeant Major James Morrison, United States Army, retired. He served 3 tours in Vietnam, 2 in Desert Storm, and 1 in Iraq. He has more confirmed kills than anyone in this building has fired rounds. He trained snipers, led reconnaissance teams, and saved more lives than most of us will ever touch." Derek's face had gone white. His phone slipped from his fingers, clattering on the concrete. The general continued, his words precise and cutting. "Sergeant Major Morrison received the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars and 4 Bronze Stars with valor. He spent 18 months as a prisoner of war, during which time he never broke, never gave up his men, never stopped being a soldier." Hayes paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "And when he came home, he asked for nothing. No parades, no recognition, just peace and quiet." The old man's expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in his eyes. Hayes stepped closer, his voice softer now, but still audible. "I was one of his trainees, Sergeant Major. 23 years ago you taught me how to lead men, how to keep them alive. Everything I am as a soldier I owe to you." He gestured to the M1 Garand. "I heard you were having trouble with the Rangers' ammunition. That won't happen again, I'll make sure of it." Morrison finally spoke, his voice still quiet. "The rifle wasn't broken. It never is. People just forget how to listen to what it's telling them." He looked at Derek, his sad, serious face showing no anger, no vindication, just a profound weariness. "Young man, confidence is good. Arrogance is dangerous. Learn the difference before it costs you or someone you care about." Derek tried to speak, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came. Finally he managed, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know. I didn't understand." Tears were running down his face now, shame and realization hitting him in waves. Morrison set the M1 down carefully, treating it with the respect due a trusted tool. "You couldn't have known. I don't advertise my past. But you could have shown respect anyway. Age, experience, the willingness to try something difficult. These things deserve recognition regardless of who's doing them." He picked up his worn range bag. "The rifle taught you a lesson today. It taught all of you. Tools aren't broken just because they're old. Methods aren't obsolete just because they're traditional. And people aren't useless just because they've got grey hair." The general placed a hand on Morrison's shoulder. "Will you let me buy you lunch, Sergeant Major? I have some officers I'd like you to meet. Young ones who could benefit from your perspective." Morrison nodded slowly, and Hayes turned to Collins. "This man shoots free at this range from now on. Any range in the state, actually. I'll make the calls." As they walked toward the SUV, Derek called out, his voice breaking, "Sergeant Major Morrison, sir." The old man turned, his red jacket bright against the dull colours of the range. Derek came to attention, his posture imperfect but earnest, and saluted. "Thank you for your service, and I'm sorry, I'll be better." Morrison returned the salute, his movements crisp despite his age. "See that you are, son. The military needs good men, but it needs humble men even more." He paused, then added, "Keep practicing with that AR. It's a fine weapon. But don't dismiss the old ways. They survived because they worked." The general's aide had been recording the conversation on his phone. As Morrison climbed into the SUV, Hayes turned back to the assembled shooters. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Respect isn't given based on appearance or age. It's earned through action and character. This man has both in abundance. Remember that the next time you're tempted to judge someone by their jacket or their choice of rifle." The SUV pulled away, leaving the range in stunned silence. Derek stood staring at his hands, his expensive rifle suddenly feeling like a toy. Collins walked over, his expression stern. "You got off easy, kid. The sergeant major could have humiliated you. Instead, he taught you, don't waste the lesson." Over the following weeks, the story spread through the veteran community and beyond. The video Derek had been recording went viral, watched by millions. The old man's perfect marksmanship and quiet dignity contrasting sharply with the initial mockery. Comments poured in from veterans around the world, sharing their own stories of Morrison, the legendary instructor who had trained generations of soldiers. Derek returned to the range every week, but he was different now. He asked questions instead of showing off. He tried the older rifles, learning their quirks and their history. He started volunteering at a veterans centre, listening to stories, offering respect where it was due. The shame of that day never fully left him, but he transformed it into something better, a reminder to look deeper, to judge slower, to respect always. Morrison continued his Saturday routine, arriving alone, shooting alone, leaving alone. But now the other shooters nodded to him, made space for him, treated him with the quiet respect he had always deserved. He never sought attention, never told his stories unless asked, never used his past as a weapon or a shield. He remained the sad, serious old man in the red jacket, carrying burdens no one else could see, finding peace in the rhythm of the rifle and the discipline of the shot. The M1 Garand he had fired that day was retired from the rental rack and mounted in the range's lobby, a plaque beneath it reading, "This rifle isn't broken. It just needed someone who remembered how to listen, in honour of Sergeant Major James Morrison and all who served." Every person who entered the range saw it, a reminder that worth isn't always visible, that judgment should be earned, and that sometimes the quietest people carry the heavier stories.